So it's NXT TakeOver week, and we've kicked off with night 1, aka the last night that NXT will be on Wednesday nights. So on the pre-show, we had Zoe Stark versus Toni Storm, and personally, I thought Toni Storm had this in the bag. I mean, when you look at her resume compared to Zoe's, it's really no contest. I mean, I've been impressed with Zoe Stark with what she's been able to do the past few weeks against people like Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, but I think this is actually her biggest win so far. So I think NXT sees something in her and is going to give her a huge push right now, which I'm honestly okay with. Then we had Pete Dunne versus Kushida, and this was really a battle to see who was the best technical wrestler in NXT. And this match was pretty much exactly what you'd expect, which is not a bad thing. This had some moments where you could see that the two combatants were technicians, you had moments where they were straight up brawling, and overall it was a good match. But in the end, Pete Dunne would hit the bitter end and get the win. Then we had the gauntlet match to determine the number 1 contender to the NXT North American Championship. So Isaiah Swerve Scott obviously pinned Ruff to continue their rivalry. LA Knight pinned Dexter Lumis and then was promptly pinned by Bronson Reed. This seriously feels like 50-50 booking, which is something that WWE is notorious for. Because after LA Knight won in his debut, Bronson Reed would beat LA Knight the next week. And then the week after that, LA Knight would be one of the guys to eliminate Bronson Reed from the Battle Royal, only to have Bronson Reed pin LA Knight in the gauntlet match. If anything, LA Knight is just stagnating. He's a new star who, in ranking terms, is not moving at all. But anyways, at this point, there were only 3 people left in the match: Bronson Reed, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Cameron Grimes. So Isaiah Swerve Scott and Cameron Grimes would team up to attack Bronson Reed, but then eventually Scott betrayed Grimes and pinned him, leaving just Bronson Reed and Isaiah Scott to determine who would be the number 1 contender. And after some back and forth, Reed would finish Scott off with a big splash from the top rope. And Bronson Reed would move on to night 2 to face Johnny Gargano for the NXT North American Championship. And then we had the NXT United Kingdom champion Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa for the NXT UK Championship. And this match was awesome. I think we all knew that going into it. But before I talk about that, I have to say that presentation-wise, there was a lot of things that I liked. I like how Tommaso Ciampa finally shaved his head so that he's bald again. I think he just looks so much better and cleaner this way. I like how Tommaso Ciampa returned to his trunks instead of the long pants that he wore before. I just think he looks so much better like this. Like, he looks like the old Tommaso Ciampa, which was probably the most dominant Tommaso Ciampa, because no offense, but he really has not been doing much since he returned and entered into that feud with Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. And before the match, they also mentioned Walter's 700+ day championship reign, and they really put it over. And I don't know how to feel about that, because as good as Walter is, I kind of feel about his championship reign the same way I feel about guys like Brock Lesnar's championship reigns, just probably not to the same extent. Because as long as Walter's title reign is, I feel like he hasn't really defended it a whole bunch, at least compared to some of the other champions on the roster. And yeah, that might partially be due to how the world is right now, and the UK guys can't really wrestle the same way they used to, but still, I don't think they should have been putting it over as much as they did. Anyways, as far as the match goes, there was great storytelling in this match. Ciampa was working on Walter's hand the whole time, so this way Walter wouldn't be able to chop him. Walter targeted Ciampa's neck because of the surgeries that Ciampa has had on it. Both men sold their injured body parts super well. This match was also incredibly physical. I think we all knew that going into it as well. Walter put Ciampa against the announce table and tried to chop him, but Ciampa moved, and Walter split the cover of the announce table in half. I thought that was pretty cool, up until I saw the cover again later in the night, and you could tell that it was staged because the way it was split looked way too neat, so you could obviously tell that they had set it up. But either way, the match ends when Walter locks Tommaso Ciampa in a headlock, then throws him over his head like he would with a German suplex, and then chops him before pinning him. I have to say the ending of this match felt super awkward. Like, it felt like it just ended so abruptly. I was honestly expecting a lot more than just a chop to take out Ciampa, but whatever. Then we had MSK versus Legado del Fantasma versus the Grizzled Young Veterans for the vacant NXT Tag Team Championships. And I don't have a whole lot to say about this match because the majority of it was honestly just a bunch of high spots. And maybe it's just me, but I honestly did not feel like this was an NXT Tag Team title match because I honestly don't feel like any of these teams deserve to be Tag Team Champions just yet. I mean, I figured if any one of these teams had to win, it would probably be MSK, just because Legado del Fantasma are pretty much just Santos Escobar's cronies, and Grizzled Young Veterans are more part of the NXT UK scene, so really that only left MSK, who did win. And yeah, I guess I just felt like none of these teams had gotten big enough yet to become champions. And then finally, we had our main event, which was the NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez for the title. And honestly, I would have bet my house on Io retaining the title, mostly because I just really could not see Raquel as a champion, no matter how well of a threat they managed to make her look before the title match. I think it's because she mainly seems like a sidekick to Dakota Kai, but I guess she proved me wrong tonight. So they battle back and forth. Io does a big high spot where she jumps from the Titantron area onto Raquel, who is on the stage. Io even managed to hit her signature moonsault, but it still wasn't enough. And eventually they end the match in a really cool sequence where Io Shirai does this hand strike, and then Raquel answers back with a wicked lariat, and then delivers her signature one-armed powerbomb to pick up the win and the title. So overall, the whole night had some pretty good action. There were some good title matches, and I guess this will be the last NXT on Wednesday nights for a while, which officially puts an end to the Wednesday Night Wars. And you know they had their last Wednesday night be an NXT TakeOver event just so they could beat AEW and leave on a high note, and as it turns out, they did. But remember guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So at the end of this marathon, the score is... oh. Well, maybe in the demos they... You know what? Never mind. Bye, guys.